Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss how you can raise more money by prioritizing planned giving in just 1 to 3 hours a week. We'll go through an agenda for our time together in just a few minutes, which includes time for reflection and questions at the end. We'll also do our best to monitor the Q&A throughout the webinar today and get back to people in real time. Please do share your questions and your observations with us throughout the presentation using that chat function. We do want to hear from you. You'll be guided today by two members of CCS Fundraising's gift planning practice group, Christopher Dake and myself. I'm an assistant vice president based in Los Angeles, California, coming up on 5 years with CCS. My colleague, Christopher Dake, is a vice president out of the Washington, D.C. office. And Christopher has been with CCS for 8 years. Please feel welcome to connect with us anytime outside of this webinar. We look forward to getting to know as many of you as possible and supporting your great work in gift planning and beyond. Our contact information is listed at the end of this presentation as well, so you know where to find us. To start with some perspective on CCS, we are a strategic fundraising firm that partners with nonprofits for transformational change. I know that we have a few, or maybe more than a few, current and previous clients on the webinar today, and we're so happy to have you here. Our firm has been in business for 7 decades, meaning we have a long history of partnering with nonprofits to build successful campaigns, leading innovations in nonprofit fundraising, and have also partnered with organizations across all philanthropic sectors nationally and around the globe. We are headquartered in New York City with 14 offices throughout North America and Europe. Our gift planning practice group includes members of our firm who are highly experienced and knowledgeable across sectors, disciplines, and regions. We help our nonprofit partners sustainably increase revenue in the short and long term with the goal of transforming philanthropy specifically through the lens of gift planning. CCS also offers a standalone or integrated gift planning assessment for organizations who want to dive deeper into this world and understand their potential to both build a stronger culture of gift planning and increase their gifts of non-cash assets. Please reach out to Christopher or me if you'd like to chat about our offerings further. And we have an hour stacked with insight and guidance to share with you today. We'll spend the first 15 minutes or so covering our first 2 goals here by laying the groundwork for why it's the right time and the smart strategy to invest in elevating planned giving at your organization. Of course, your presence today only demonstrates that your instincts are right on and you're motivated to take the next step. So you're in the right place and you're doing the right thing by being here. We'll then get into the meat of our presentation by sharing practical steps and guidance to make a meaningful impact in planned giving work with limited time on your calendar. You are welcome and encouraged to take your own notes throughout today's conversation, but please know, as we've shared, that you will receive a recording of today's webinar and this presentation in follow-up.
All right, Anne, thanks. It's good to be with you. Good to be with everyone. Let's start off with making sure that we define the words when we're talking about gift planning. So many words of bequests, planned giving, deferred gifts, estate planning, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just jump right into 3 words that we're going to be using on a regular basis throughout the presentation and how we at CCS like to define things. First thing, gift planning culture. It's a term used to refer to a culture of donor-centric giving, where the organization and the institution are committed to focus on non-cash assets. And planned giving is not only just a program within fundraising, but it's also a strategy. So most organizations that I'm sure that we see a lot of people here today who have been involved in plan giving for over 5 years, they probably have a standalone program within their development department, but it's also a strategy that even the smallest of development shops can use. And then finally, there's the deferred gift, which is for us a tool. Bequests are a tool. Trusts are a tool. There are plenty of other tools that we'll go through today as well. So we've got that baseline, understanding what words we're going to use. Let's just jump into some stats. This will be really quick, but I think it's important to sort of frame the dynamic of what we see with gift planning and its impacts in a lot of different areas, not only with our partners at CCS, but across the entire sector. So it's really a unique moment. I think we all know that in philanthropy. We have an enormous wealth transfer. $64 trillion is going to transfer from baby boomers to their heirs over the next few decades. We think that the peak is going to be in 2030, which is just right around the corner. We've seen the pandemic and the economic shifts, that philanthropy is resilient, that adaptation and resiliency by nonprofits, we've seen continued success. We've seen donor being more sophisticated. I think that everyone is seeing an increase, we'll talk about this in a minute, an increase in terms of donor advised funds and other sophisticated ways of giving. And so nonprofits really have to meet that sophistication, whether it's online vehicles or in fact, gift planning. All right. So in last month, CCS released its second edition of what we call our Philanthropy Pulse Report. And it provides just a window of the partners that we work with on their fundraising practices. Now, it involves about 1,200 organizations, and we did it in the fall of 2022. And we had 3 takeaways from this. And generally, in terms of gift planning, generally people feel like they have a low level of expertise. DAS, as I mentioned, are the gifts that they see the most, and we see that $34 billion in 2021. DAS continue to set new highs every year, and that's reflective in our partner organizations. And then really the good news is that we're going to see that deferred gifts are going to increase. So we have an expectation that this is going to keep growing. In terms of the specifics, we got 2 charts here, and we can see at the top organizations that have non-cash assets as a part of their fundraising efforts by the organization, from left to right, from 0 all the way to 100%. We see that 20% is really the highest. I'm kind of interested by this, that 11% at none. That I think is being the 3rd largest area. I think it is venture to guess that it's mostly because people don't know what to do or how to do it. And of course, you see at the bottom, what are the obstacles? What do you see as the obstacle? And the greatest obstacle, as we said, is expertise in this sector. Also, the next one over is about whether or not your organization is ready to handle these type of gifts. And so we'll talk about that more. Now, this is an interesting graph that we have in the report. So from left to right on your screen, the left-hand side is budgets for organizations, and from right to left is about how much of these percentages are non-cash contributions. And what we have seen is that larger organizations that are able to invest in gift planning practices secure more non-cash gift assets. So let's just take the top $500 million organizations, about, what is it, 46? I can't see the number very well. That have more than 20% and the remainder have at least 1 to 20%. So if you go all the way to the bottom, organizations that have budgets that are less than $1 million, there's a substantial amount of those that don't record anything. And then the middle have at least 1 to 20%, and then there are very few that have 20% or above. So I think that that's an interesting indication in terms of why that is, and should be able to motivate you to say, hey, if we invest more, we can grow our percentages in this area. And Anne, I think you're up next.
Thanks, Christopher. As many of you know, Giving USA releases an annual report analyzing charitable giving from the prior calendar year. Each year, giving by bequests continues to make up around 10% overall giving in our country. Giving USA further assessed those deferred gift donors of all stripes and released a Leaving a Legacy report at the end of 2019. It shed light on some data that I think many fundraisers have overlooked. And this Leaving a Legacy report really contains the most recent focused data around gift planning in the nonprofit industry. So that's in addition to CCS's own research and Giving USA's annual research, we still use this information regularly when it comes to specific gift planning topics and data. Bequests are far and away the most popular vehicle for planned gifts. In 2021, the year for which we have most recent data from Giving USA, bequests made up 9% of overall charitable giving in the US, totaling $46 billion. Estates of all sizes made bequests to charity, but about 3/4 of those total bequests were made from estates over $1 million. So roughly, more wealthy estates made more charitable bequests and larger charitable bequests. Additionally, we learned from the Giving USA report that those who are ready to consider or make deferred gift contributions may be younger than we previously realized, or that common belief may tell us. By understanding that folks in their 40s are making their first will, and by their 50s are ready to include a charity as part of their estate, we should be engaging donors in those age groups and possibly even younger to begin with financial literacy education with deferred gift focused conversations. This is not a topic that's limited to one age bracket. We love how simply stated yet impactful Dr. Russell James' work is on the why of gift planning. That nonprofits receiving any type of non-cash gift experience exponentially and meaningfully more growth over a 5-year period, and even in the same year, in some cases, across philanthropic revenue streams. This rising tide truly lifts all boats. One of my favorite insights is the psychological distinction between gifts of wealth and gifts of cash. People are more generous with their non-cash assets for a charitable initiative than they are with disposable income. And even more impactful, the experience itself of transferring an asset to a charity is in many cases more significant from a relationship perspective between the donor and the organization that they're supporting. This relationship shifts from one of what do we want from our donors to what can we do for our donors. And over time, 95% of deferred gift donors maintain or increase their annual giving to that same organization. Russell James' research also reveals that the largest gifts of the last 10 years have come from people with net worths on the dark blues towards the bottom end of this chart. The closer the relationship that you and your organization have to people in the dark blues through education and taking action, you'll find that you also get closer to securing these major gifts of assets. On the other hand, This chart also shows us that people of all net worths possess a combination of liquid and illiquid assets. Most commonly, things like real estate, their primary residence, and their vehicles, but of special interest to gift planning among this group of lower net worths are things like retirement plans and insurance policies. All of these assets can be given as charitable gifts. So, reasonably speaking, there's an area for conversation amongst every level of this chart. I'm going to take this a step further by also noting that gift planning can meaningfully diversify your donor base. Many donors of color are asset rich, and organizations need to take ownership of reaching out to them with more education around the accessible ways to give from non-cash assets and diversified resources. If an organization is truly committed to the value of gift planning, it also signals a commitment to building wealth, and specifically intergenerational wealth in its communities by championing financial planning and literacy amongst diverse donor constituencies. Christopher, you are on mute, but I see you taking over.
Can you see that? I'll start over again. Thank you. Let's get into the nitty gritty. So if you're an MGO and you want to dip your toes into planned giving and you have prospects, or you're a small shop or single fundraiser, we've done something here where we really would love for you to focus on your attention, and then your time management will take care of itself. So at the top of this slide is 4 areas of focus in general, and then at the bottom 4 areas where we specifically are looking to do on a day-to-day basis. But I'm going to start off with asking some questions. Are you a transactional fundraiser? Are you worried more about cash than non-cash? Do you spend most of your time trying to find new donors? Do you have a mindset that is you're looking for something new and exciting? And most importantly, are you patient enough? Because gift planning is a commitment. Gift planning takes a real focus, and you will see the benefits if you do that. So if you're committed and you're consistent, and you just think of the 4 general areas of what it means to be committed: clarity of purpose. Do you want deeper relationships with your donors and raise more money, not only now, as Ann just talked about, but in the future? Confidence. Do you understand the subject matter and what resources to use? Because it's an ever-evolving, constantly updating medium. Accountability. Are you ensuring that the investment that you're going to make in a gift planning culture is worth it? And then, of course, everything about fundraising is about momentum. Are you doing the actions that are going to guarantee success? And the 4 focus areas that we're going to focus on, where we would love for your attention to be, is education, identification, strategy, and of course, action. Education, what do you know? What do your donors know? What is your organization capable of doing? Identification, we all do this as fundraisers, but are you looking not only at donors that can give, but what about your financial planners, your financial partners that can help you with education, will help you with being able to accept certain gifts? Your strategy, what about simple marketing? And most importantly, we're talking about blended gifts, right? Gifts now and gifts later, blended gifts, which is something that we're working with all of our clients on. And then, of course, the time that you spend. So I'm a huge fan of Maura Neville Thomas, who is a productivity expert. And the way that she frames productivity is in attention management versus time management. And I love this quote: what you pay attention to becomes your experience. So if you want a planned giving program and you want to implement planned giving strategies that will help you have a gift planning culture, you need to pay attention to that, because if you don't, your experience won't be that. And how can we break this up in the week? Well, this is just a suggestion. Use it as you will. I go back to my MGO days and how I used to break out my day. So Monday, education. Are we looking at videos, 10-minute videos? Dr. Russell James puts out some amazing stuff. Are you reading any books like Plan Giving in a Nutshell, Plan Giving Basics? Are you looking at your gift acceptance policies, which we'll talk about in a little bit? And, you know, things take 30 minutes every Monday just to do those things. Your identification, we do this on a regular basis, but we'll talk a little bit more about how you can dive deeper into doing that identification and connections with your board. The strategy, cultivation events, lunch and learns, educational sessions, identifying financial partners that can help you with those educational sessions, and then review the weekly progress, do one internal, external action, and get yourself set up for success. If you continue to plan for the week ahead, you will have success. So let's combine some of these tasks that we focused on, education and action. And first things first, gift acceptance policies. If you don't have a gift acceptance policy, you need one. If you haven't looked at it in a while, you need to review it. But let's make sure that we lean on existing resources. The National Association of Charitable Gift Planners lays out guidelines for reporting and counting charitable gifts. We see this question pretty much daily, on a daily basis. How do I count this gift? How should I be reporting on this gift? Lean into your resources. They're out there. And we'll supply a bunch of information towards the end on what those resources are. Let's take a minute to make sure, if necessary, that we need to update, but audit your policies. I worked with a client recently where we had to take out a lot of things because they just weren't doing those anymore. But it's important that that your gift acceptance policies are flexible and meet the needs and the future needs of what your organization wants. And make sure that you are documenting everything when it comes to plan gifts. These will take time. The gifts will come later. It's more important than ever to make sure that you're tracking and being accurate. It will save the organization. It will help the organization. So just keep that in mind. All right, so identification. We're talking about data analysis. We want to provide you some questions in terms of what to look for. At CCS, we do the RFM, the frequency, or the recency, the frequency, and monetary of each donor. Who has been giving to you over many years? We see that in plan giving, 40% have been donating to the organization 10 years or more. The monetary, in terms of plan gift prospects, are donors that are currently probably giving you around $500 or less. Age, as Ann mentioned before, is something that you can investigate even further. We're seeing plan giving happening from people from beginning at the age of 40 to 54. And so if you look at the things that aren't going to appear necessarily in your CRM, you know, whether or not their involvement in volunteers, their marital status, and things of that nature, all of these things will help you in identification. Anne?
Next, we're going to talk about resourcing. So we all know that well-intentioned and well-laid plans don't mean much without having the proper resources and an understanding of the capabilities of staff members, leadership, volunteer leaders, and even advisors to drive that plan forward. Gift planning is an institutional commitment, the value of which should be recognized across your internal stakeholders. You may have just a few hours a week to spend on gift planning, but how can you coordinate, streamline, and support the work of others to amplify a culture of gift planning and maximize your personal efforts in this space? There are a handful of guiding questions that we pose here to help you define your starting points for activating fellow colleagues, leadership, and volunteers as your partners in this work. Looking first at internal considerations on the staff level, of course, there needs to ideally be enough people on the team and a support system for your team to set your organization up for success with gift planning. We want to consider who needs to be activated in this work and culture building within your development office and also outside of it. What will it take for effective and impactful strategies to be fulfilled across the organization, from the finance department to program staff and beyond? Again, meaning that this is an institutional commitment, it's a culture across the organization. Additionally, by empowering staff to become advocates for gift planning and their continued professional development in this area, it's going to have a positive ripple effect across your key constituencies. Their commitment to gift planning will breed a similar desire for engagement and learning from your leaders and donors. For organizational leaders, do they have an understanding of the implications of gift planning work, both in terms of its strategic advantages and the needs for that proper resourcing to make it successful? This is a long game, definitely. So the resourcing needs to be there in order to see through that bigger picture. How much education do they need to become advocates? Consider what you're learning here today, the data you'll continue to gather to build your case for gift planning at your organization, and the education that you are engaging in yourself as your foundations for bringing along your leadership on this initiative. And last, looking at volunteer leaders, we're going to discuss board engagement more deeply on the next slide. For starters, again, take stock of the current state of affairs with your volunteer leaders. What do they know? What have they done so far? And how can they be helpful to you? Going forward, how much education and cultivation do they need to become engaged in advancing your culture of gift planning? Most importantly, are they willing to invest non-cash assets and deferred gifts in your organization personally? And can they make connections to other volunteer leaders, prospective donors, or advisors? Now, if you've already built a major gifts program or have completed a major gifts campaign, these concepts are going to be familiar to you, but the lens just changes to one that's focused on dual philanthropic and financial planning with your donors, as well as the nature of the conversations that you're having with them, which we'll talk more about as well today. Of all your human resources, we're calling out your board's involvement because of the depth and breadth of what your leadership can accomplish with you. A few of the priority areas where your board can support a growing culture of gift planning include providing oversight and resourcing of your gift planning efforts. Your board obviously needs to greenlight a planned giving program, budget, and staffing, all of those operational items, and provide continuous oversight through your investment or development committees if you have them. In order to do this, you need to build your case for gift planning, develop and gain buy-in on your plan of action from the board, and manage up and communicate impact continuously with your point people in leadership. Second, ask board members to make their own planned gift commitments. There's no better endorsement, as we all know, than a personal gift. Start here with your most likely prospects by profiling them through a similar data analysis exercise if you need to, as Christopher took us through. And then also look at your executive committee, your development committee, and build participation outwards from there towards 100% over time. Blended gift requests here are absolutely your friend. Third, identify which board members can become ambassadors and carriers of the message for gift planning to donors through personal cultivation, lending their voice to marketing efforts, and participating in cultivation events and educational opportunities. And lastly, ask for help building a network of financial advisors, gift planning experts, estate lawyers, and even prospective donors in some cases that your board members are connected to. Charities can be invaluable partners to their donors and constituents in building and protecting intergenerational wealth, especially over the coming years as we experience the great wealth transfer from older to younger generations in the US. So we're going to start at the very ground level here in terms of donor engagement, which we'll explore over an arc here in the next few minutes. Consider initiating your engagement work with building financial literacy amongst your constituents. Charitable organizations can absolutely take a leading role in educating their audiences on the essentials of personal finance. An educational series or marketing materials could take inspiration from the progression that we share here on this slide, and using your contacts or growing network of advisors and experts to help you with these efforts. Estate planners, lawyers, people who work in this space do this kind of educational activity with charities with whom they have a relationship all the time. They're happy to do it, they do it often, and they do it well. You could also build a list of existing resources to direct people to for help with each of these topics, again, in partnership with them to build their financial literacy. And also take note of how you're learning and keep it handy to share with others. Tell them about your educational journey and share with them what's worked for you. Plan giving prospects are those donors who are already closest to your organization. They are motivated to leave a legacy to an organization that they are already financially and emotionally invested in, and amplify their current giving through gifts of non-cash assets to provide for current needs as well as for the long term. If one of the pain points in your development shop is donor acquisition, as we see very often in our work, shift your focus to planned giving prospects. They're already going to be familiar with your mission. And as we mentioned previously, deferred gift donors actually maintain or increase their annual giving once they've made that deferred gift commitment. Of course, even the most engaged donors have to be offered education in the benefits of planned giving and cultivated and continuously stewarded through activities and conversations and impact. We know that almost half of donors first learned about planned giving directly from a nonprofit. Ultimately, donors should understand how a planned gift could offer them decreased taxes and or income, offer them consistent and steady income, while also allowing them to support the charity that they care about. So anchor your time spent on how the data and your experience says donors want to be engaged around gift planning. We see here through the Leaving a Legacy report that donors want to be engaged through things like education, membership in a legacy society, or some other form of public recognition, and personal contact and updates that communicate impact. Gift planning is even more relational than other giving because donors need to reveal their assets and need to be engaged in a conversation about how gift planning helps them achieve both personal, financial, and philanthropic goals, and how that really ties into their legacy in this world. Donor engagement ultimately needs to be highly proactive and interactive because we see so much variance around how people want to be engaged in this space. We really need to be listening to and customizing how we're engaging and stewarding donors in this space. And next, we're going to talk about a few actionable steps for donor engagement. First, start seeding planned giving conversations with your donors. A few examples of conversation starters include things like, you've been a donor for so many years. Have you considered what you want your legacy to be? Can I help you think through what that might look like? We want to make sure we're recognizing you appropriately for all your philanthropic commitments, including any that you might not have shared with us yet, like an estate gift. Have you included our organization in your estate? Second, some prospective donors are also going to reveal themselves to you in different ways. Listen for clues to start a planned giving conversation. Some of those clues might be statements like, I'm concerned that I will outlive my money. I want to provide for my children and grandchildren and also want to continue supporting your work here. I want to do more for organization, but I don't think I can do that and continue to support the annual fund, the gala that I support every year, whatever it may be. Third, determine which donors might consider blended gifts for cohesion, efficiency, and maximum impact. We've talked about blended gifts a lot today. So just to define a blended gift for those who are not familiar, that is an annual gift, an annual fund contribution, or maybe an event contribution, or a major gift or a campaign gift, whatever that donor is sort of doing for the current needs of the organization, plus a planned gift commitment, like a bequest or something more custom for that donor's needs. And last, draft a standard bequest intention appeal so that you have that ready to go, and also to help shape your messaging for additional communications or proposals as they come up. Some of those standard messages that you would want to include in a bequest appeal include the future-focused aspects and nature of your mission, a communication of the long-term vision and impact that your organization hopes to make on their space, sustainability and permanence, how the donor can achieve your philanthropic and financial goals while also supporting the causes that they care about, and that there are many easy ways to make a planned gift commitment, including a simple bequest provision in their will or estate.
All right. So I want to jump on Jennifer's question. Thank you for asking. She asked, and this ties right into the slide that I'm going to talk about here. From a prospect managing standpoint, can you talk about building a plan giving portfolio? How do you assign plan giving fundraisers to major gift fundraisers? And what sort of markers? So it's a great question. What we would recommend at CCS is that we want to normalize plan giving throughout all giving officers. So even if your major gift officer has a little bit of plan giving knowledge and has a little bit of knowledge in terms of what those tools are, we should be encouraging those people to have those conversations like Anne mentioned, those questions about have deeper relationships. You know, if they have a business, are they selling a business? What kind of opportunities are there to do something meaningful? But to get to your question, and I'll do this with the slide, the marketing and communications part is making sure that you have a message that gets out to people that you're actually doing plan giving, or that you are capable of doing different types of gifts. Anytime that you can make a major announcement of a wonderful gift that came through one of these deferred gift options, and just make sure that you're updating all of your channels, whether that's online, whether that's snail mail, whether that's your website, and make sure that you invest in time to do a brochure that's very specific about it. But Jennifer, to get back to your question, a survey, whatever level that you're doing in terms of plan gifts, I've been working with a couple clients where we put out a survey, even if it's to people that you wouldn't necessarily think about that would have a plan gift, asking them if they put the organization in their will, if they've would be interested in education, would they be interested in learning more? That's a portfolio right there. We had one client where we had at least 25 people, and that's a good building block for someone who is, that person actually was segmenting major gifts and planned gifts. So it encompassed an entire portfolio for that small organization, around 75 donors and prospects. So sending out identifications, those create your markers. Conversations where your major gift donors who might not feel comfortable in terms of like, well, they're selling a business and then their heirs are going to have a business, but they want to create a trust, then you can start moving those people over. And anytime that you can implement more of your plan giving officers into those conversations with your major gifts, that's all part of the education. That's all part of the identification process and building those relationships. Don't be afraid of having more than one person take those on. I hope that helps. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so one of the things that is very helpful in terms of marketing your plan giving opportunities, of course, a legacy society. There's an organization that I've been working with that had a very dormant legacy society. So they need to ramp it up. They need to be able to communicate with people. And then, of course, there's people that are establishing new legacy societies. But I think it's important to understand which way that you are right now. And we list out exactly what you need to do in terms of listing an existing legacy and what you can do about future ones. And I want to jump into the next slide because that's really where all of the meat of this this part of the marketing. So legacy societies give you access, they give you information, and they have shared experiences. These are important stewardship and important cultivation vehicles on a regular basis. So if you're providing more access to the organization, those people feel like they're an insider. If you're providing more information, as I mentioned, like gifts that have already been made, people are going to be motivated by that. People are always motivated by peers and what they do. And it's also very interesting in terms of people sharing their experience, that this is an organization that really cares about its supporters, and it's very important that the Legacy Society provides that sense of high level, deeper, meaningful relationships. And so I talked about this before in terms of education and how important it is when you're talking about understanding plan giving strategies, understanding deferred gifts, continual education. This is an ever-evolving area of philanthropy. I don't know any plan giving officer who has done this ever stops learning. And what I like about plan giving is I had one of my mentors told me once, he said, no one ever leaves plan giving to go somewhere else, right? No one's leaving to go work on an annual fund. And that really says a lot in terms about how meaningful these relationships are. But you have to make sure that you're educated so that you can really help people get the most out of what they want to accomplish, not only with their families, but also their impacts. So CCS, we talked about our gift planning practice group. We're constantly doing educations and trainings. We're doing the things that we're asking people to do themselves. So if when you get the deck, you can see the different resources and different areas in terms of what you can cover, and you can create your own gift planning educational plan, your syllabus that doesn't give you any flashbacks in a negative way. And that's what we do at CCS with our practice group. And of course, everything that we do as fundraisers needs to be measurable. Got to measure your progress. All the clients that I've been working with recently in terms of how they build out their metrics, they have to decide what's the most important to them. And it varies in terms of maturity, in terms of their development offices. But you have to measure something, and you have to measure things that a work product that allows you to have deeper relationships. A constant theme of this is, what are the touch points? What are we learning? What are we talking about? And what are we offering? This is a great Friday activity, I think, just to say, hey, what did we do this week? Well, here's what I did on the education side. Here's what I did on the identification side. Here's what we did on strategy. And now here's what we're going to do. And also what we did, if we had an event or whatever action that we took, we sent out a survey, we did these things. What are we going to do next? And it's so important to be able to measure everything. And I see that there's more questions, and I don't know if do we want to take this?
Absolutely. So thanks, Christopher. We'll now spend the next 6 minutes or so, 6 or 7 minutes, to have you all share your reflections about what resonates most strongly for you from today's discussion, and also share additional questions with us. We'll answer as many of them as we can before we have to wrap up for today. And always happy to connect with you separately to discuss your questions as well. To speak to Jennifer's question, asking if we could share any success stories with blended gifts where giving was increased when incorporating a planned gift and how recognition played into that. I'll share an example from one of my clients when we undertook a proposal exercise with one of the organizations. This was a community college in Southern California. She was interested in doing some estate planning and winding down her estate, and wanted to understand her options for how she could continue to support the college in a more meaningful way while also achieving some of these personal financial goals. So what we did was took her through a series of discussions and a proposal that offered ways for her to actually increase her annual giving, which is something that she had also expressed, wanting to continue supporting the scholarships that she had established and increasing the level of those, while also giving her options for how she could use a property of hers to also continue to support the college in a new way. So we put together several scenarios for her related to up-leveling her current scholarship through cash gifts, and also how she could utilize things like a charitable remainder trust and a charitable gift annuity, and another giving vehicle that is escaping me right now, to support additional priorities of her, or also provide for those scholarships in the long term. Those scholarships were named. She really enjoyed having those scholarships established in the name of family members who attended the college, who she wanted to honor the memory of. So recognition was really important there, to bring it back to her initial connection with the college through family members who had attended there. And ultimately, that conversation uncovered even more willingness to do more for the college through the disposable cash that she had, and also really planted the seeds for her around what she could do in the long term. It was the first time that she had ever had a conversation around planned giving, so needed a lot of education from us and needed to have sort of a longer series of discussions that ultimately really bore fruit on both sides.
Can I jump in with just a quick example? A very small um, social service organization that works with people with developmental disabilities had a very dedicated younger couple who gave consistently around five to almost 10 grand a year. And they began their legacy society, and this person said, you know, I have a small business. My child, of course, is a part of the program. I want to make sure that just in case anything happens, that she's taken care of, and the organization is taken care of as well. And unfortunately, tragically, it did happen. It was an unfortunate accident. The donor passed away. But an enormous gift came through that helped the organization do some significant programming and extension in terms of their headquarters. And in recognition of that, their legacy society, they renamed after this person. So that's you know, it was a pretty powerful thing that happened, but it was amazing that the organization was brave enough to have those conversations with people who were in their mid-50s. I'll answer, Kelly. No, you don't. It is a community that you can reach out to everyone, like pooled income funds. Like I couldn't, I would need to talk to a couple people to see who I should talk to in terms of what we would do with something like that. But no, you don't have to have an understanding of all vehicles.
And in fact, in our position, we are not to be providing specific tax or financial advice. So it's perfectly standard to stay in your lane with your area of knowledge, of course, building on it over time. But most likely your donor is going to have a financial advisor also working on their end to help them understand their specific financial implications for making a planned gift.
Yeah, and there, I mean, it is complicated. These things can be complicated. But if you build out partnerships, if you get involved in terms of your education that you do as a fundraiser, but focus that attention on gift planning, you'll be successful. Nicole, we're not reiterating the question. The question was, do we need to be an expert in all plan giving vehicles? Because it sounded complicated and what, to give advice. Thank you for pointing that out. Is there anything that resonates with folks that they would like to share?
Okay, so we're going to take just a couple of minutes to close us out today, and we hope that you'll reach out to continue the conversation with us as well. Just to summarize what we've learned and what we're advocating for here, the why now for gift planning culture touches on the benefits both for our donors, their personal, financial, and philanthropic goals, and for our nonprofits. Things like increased funding for our key priorities can now become possible, creating a more engaged and supportive donor constituency, and more. Gift planning culture and gift planning strategies are for all donors, though gift planning is usually associated, as we've talked about, with older and longtime donors. There's significant opportunity to engage younger donors and donors of color in plan giving strategy conversations where immediate use gifts, deferred gifts, and non-cash assets can be socialized. And last, gift planning knowledge engages donors for greater institutional investment. A basic working knowledge of non-cash assets, both for immediate use and as legacy commitments, can help facilitate greater philanthropic partnership with different types of donors. And as you walk away from today's conversation, just a few really high-level closing notes for you to marinate on further. One, decide to commit to making gift planning a priority in your work for 1 to 3 hours a week and growing this as an institutional priority over time. Understand your potential to increase gifts of non-cash assets to your organization. Plan your work strategically and realistically, leveraging your existing resources to amplify your work as you go. And last, work your plan, measure, and share your progress. And as we mentioned at the outset, our contact information is listed here. Please do reach out to us to connect with us or anybody on the CCS gift planning practice group if you're a current or former client with somebody else on the team who you're familiar with. We've so appreciated and enjoyed having this conversation with you all today. Thank you so much for joining us, and you will all be receiving a recording of this webinar and our materials as follow-up today to have on reference forever.
Forever. I like that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.